No one in the Galactic Council took humans seriously, not really, to them. Humanity was still a developing species, barely scratching the edge of interstellar technology. They were tolerated more than respected, observed more than trusted, and when Earth made its first seat request on the Council floor, the laughter could be heard from one end of the spiral chamber to the other. Admiral Rhea Sawless had been there that day. She didn't forget, though. Smirks, the dismissive shrugs, and the smug alien bureaucrats patting each other on the back after they politely denied Earth's petition. What the Council didn't realize then, and what they were about to learn the hard way, was that humans had a unique habit of saying, "Fine, I'll do it myself," when backed into a corner. Everything began. Rhea stood at the edge of the Martian Defense Command balcony, watching stars shift beyond the glass dome. The outer colonies were burning, literally. A swarm of generators known only as the Free had begun systematically wiping out human mining stations and settlements across the unprotected belts. Earth had begged the Council for aid. Ships, soldiers, even just drones. Every request came back with the same answer. Intervention at this stage would compromise neutrality. Neutrality, that word had become a joke. They weren't neutral, they were just cowards. Reyna turned as Commander Asher ran into the observatory with a data tablet clutched to his chest. "They hit Juno 4, he said, breathless. "No survivors, not one." Her fingers clenched. "Juno had over 25,000 civilians, families, children." She nodded slowly. "Get the captains, all of them." Asher hesitated. "You're activating the Phoenix Protocol." "I'm not asking anymore," she said quietly. "If the Council won't defend humanity, humanity will defend itself." 3 hours later, Rhea stood in front of a war table deep inside Martian Command, facing the 12 captains of Earth's remaining warships. Most of their fleet had been decommissioned after the Treaty of Hollow Stars, another Council demand for peacekeeping that had left Earth toothless. No one spoke for a long time. Then Captain Elias Thorne, a grizzled veteran with one cybernetic eye and a permanent scowl, leaned forward. "You're asking us to go rogue?" "No," Reyna said. "I'm saying the war is already here and no one's coming to help. So we either die waiting or we remind the galaxy why humans are the last species you want to piss off." One by one they nodded. By midnight, Earth's silent war had begun. The Council wouldn't see it coming, not at first. They were too busy regulating trade routes and debating minor cultural grievances. They didn't notice that human black market engineers had started modifying old freighters into gunships, or that experimental AI combat programs were being tested in asteroid fields, or that the deadliest human strategists, some imprisoned, some disgraced, had quietly disappeared. They didn't know about Project Ghost, an illegal deep space stealth cruiser Earth had modeled after the armistice. They didn't know about Project Eden, a weapons lab hidden beneath the ice crust of Europa, working on tech the Council had banned across all known systems. And they definitely didn't know about the Phoenix Network, a digital resurrection of every old war protocol, blacklisted playbook, and classified emergency order Earth had buried under centuries of peace treaties. Rhea watched it all unfold like the conductor of a forbidden symphony. Within 2 weeks, the Vree lost 6 dreadnoughts, destroyed regions they had controlled for decades. By week 3, human forces reclaimed 4 colonies and set up perimeter defense systems designed with terrifying efficiency. The weapons used were ones the Council had deemed too brutal for civilized war. And by week 4, Reyna Sawless did something no human had dared before. She hacked into the Galactic Council secure transmission network and sent a single broadcast. Her face appeared on every screen from Atria Prime to the Krillin fringes. I asked for help, she said, voice cold and calm. You said no, you watched our people die, so now we do it alone. If any of you stand in our way, you won't live to regret it. The message lasted 20 seconds. The silence that followed would change the galaxy forever. The message Admiral Rhea Sawless sent echoed across the stars longer than she expected. On the central planet of the Galactic Council, Valeris Prime, there was chaos. Her face kept replaying in the halls of power, on private terminals, even in the streets where civilians whispered about the angry human who declared war. Some laughed, some panicked, a few, especially those who knew the history of Earth's last real war, weren't laughing at all. In the past, humanity had always played by the rules. They obeyed the Council, waited their turn, signed the treaties, swallowed insults with gritted teeth. That was the humanity the galaxy knew. But this wasn't the same Earth. Back on Mars, Rhea stood inside the control chamber of the Ghost Light, Earth's first stealth dreadnought. The room was dimly lit, cold, with the hum of barely legal tech vibrating through the walls. The ship had been built in secret, abandoned after the peace accords, and resurrected from near death by renegade engineers who had been waiting for someone brave enough to use it again. Status? She asked without turning. Lieutenant Mira's voice came crisp and steady. Hull integrity at 98%. Cloaking field is stable. Reactor is running on phase 3 cores. We're ready. Reyna nodded, her eyes focused on the map. Plot a course to wreck territory. We're not waiting for them to hit us. Again, we hit first. For a brief second, she saw her own reflection in the dark glass, a face that looked tired but sharp, determined, not broken. She didn't know when exactly she'd stopped believing in diplomacy. Maybe it was when the 3rd colony fell and the Council still said, "Not our problem." Or maybe it was when the VRI commander sent her a video mocking the screams of dying humans like it was a sport. Either way, she had made her choice. In orbit above Ricus 9, the enemy command station spun quietly, unaware. It was heavily guarded, yes, but not expecting an attack from humans. Not this deep, not this fast. That was their first mistake. Engage silent approach, Rhea ordered. Prep torpedoes. As the Ghost Light moved through dark space like a shadow, Reyna's crew performed like ghosts, silent, efficient, unshaken. They were the best Earth had left. Soldiers with no home, scientists with no limits, veterans too angry to retire. On command, the Ghost Light launched a burst of tracking flares, fake signals, scattering electronic noise into nearby systems. Fake scouts picked up false readings and moved to intercept. The real attack hit 30 seconds later. Torpedoes slammed into the command station's engines first, then the power core, then the emergency escape pods, cutting off every path out. There were no warnings, no speeches, no negotiations, just fire, metal, and silence. On the Ghost Light's deck, Reyna watched The explosion through the viewing screen, her face blank. That's for Juno. 4, she said softly. Back on Valorous Prime, the Council's emergency meeting was heated. Species from every sector were arguing over humanity's actions. The Cathari, a race of amphibian bureaucrats, called it a war crime. The Draxan, a more militant species, said it was. Finally, some damn backbone. The Valari, hosts of the council, simply watched with cold eyes and whispered among themselves, Ambassador Howland, a human diplomat still trying to cling to old protocols, stood at the center, sweat on his forehead. This wasn't sanctioned, he said. Admiral Solace is acting alone. But no one believed that anymore. Earth wasn't disowning her. In fact, there were reports leaked somehow that showed Solace being promoted to Supreme Defense Marshal of all Terran forces just days before her broadcast. The message was clear. Earth wasn't sorry, and they weren't backing down. Meanwhile, across Earth's outer colonies, something strange began to happen. Old scrapyards, abandoned for decades, lit up at night as rogue engineers turned rusted civilian ships into improvised battleships. Mining lasers were converted into pulse weapons, civilian AIS reprogrammed themselves for combat. Farmers, teachers, retired Marines all began enlisting under one flag again, not the flag of Earth's government, but the old black and red war standard used during the Sol Rebellion, a flag that meant one thing: we don't kneel. The Council had called Earth primitive once, chaotic, impulsive, dangerous. Now they were about to see how true that really was. On the edge of wrecked space, things were falling apart. 4 of their major supply stations were gone, destroyed with surgical precision. Their warlords began arguing among themselves, blaming each other for security lapses. One of them, Commander Vexus, had survived an ambush and was now nursing cybernetic wounds in a regeneration pod. He had underestimated the humans. Everyone had. They are not the prey, he growled to his second in command. They are predators in soft skin. They will not stop, his lieutenant replied. They are angry. No, Frexus hissed, his eyes glowing red. They are insulted, that is worse. Inside the ghost light, Reyna received a private transmission. It was heavily encrypted, bouncing through dozens of relays, but she recognized the code. The screen flickered. A man's face appeared, sharp jaw, silver hair, dark eyes. General Elias Renick, her former superior, once exiled, now reactivated. I heard you made your move, he said with a slow smile. I needed to. You're starting something the Council can't ignore. I don't want them to ignore it, Rhea replied. I want them to remember what happens when they underestimate us. He leaned in. You're not alone, Rhea. I've reactivated Black Station, the old A cores, even the Genesis Frame project. She blinked. That project was shut down. It was dangerous. So is this war, he said. You're fighting for survival. I'm preparing for dominance. The screen went dark. Over the next 2 months, the war changed. It wasn't just about defense anymore. Human strike teams began targeting VAC leaders. No mercy, no messages, just sudden, clean hits. They were using something new too, adaptive stealth armor that made them invisible to most scanners. Rumor had it the tech had been banned by the Council centuries ago. Now Earth was using it like it was standard gear. Other species started watching closely. The Drakari, mercenaries known for selling their loyalty, began taking human contracts. The Janari scientists offered medical tech in exchange for Earth's war AI schematics, and the black markets on Krell Station began trading in stolen human weapon blueprints like they were priceless relics. Every time the council tried to ban these trades, someone reminded them of Earth's message: if you stand in our way, you won't live to regret it. But not everything was going Earth's way. In a small mining outpost near the Sinai's Rift, a fleet of racked retaliated. Over 7,000 civilians were killed. They made a statement of their own. Humans bleed like everyone else. Rhea saw the images, the broken habitats, the bodies, the silence of it all. She didn't cry. Not anymore. She summoned her top tactician, Colonel Arjun Ralph, and pointed at the map. We hit back, not just a base, not just a fleet. I want something sacred. I want something they'll feel. Arjun hesitated. There's only one target that fits that description. Then start planning, she said. 3 weeks later, the Vree's first temple fortress exploded in a fireball that could be seen from 3 systems away. It was a holy place, untouched for 500 years. Even in war, it had never been attacked. Until now, the Vree screamed for revenge, but they were too scattered, too broken. Earth wasn't fighting like a government anymore. They were fighting like a species betrayed. And the council, they finally spoke up. An emergency vote was called. Sanctions were proposed, ultimatums drafted, but Reyna didn't care. She was already moving to the next phase. On the outer edge of known space, a human station, once hidden under a fake comet, began activating. It was called Eidolon 7. Ghost facility off the books, not just a lab but a factory. Inside, machines began printing warframes, not suits, not ships, mechs, and not just any mechs. Genesis frames powered by AI band across the galaxy, fused with the minds of human pilots willing to give up their sanity for war. Rhea watched as the first one stood up, 30 m tall, glowing red at the core, humming with raw power. Name? Asked the engineer beside her. Rhea smiled for the first time in weeks. Name at Retribution. And somewhere far beyond Earth or the Council or even V-Space, another species watched all of it unfold in silence. The Elohim, ancient, powerful, near myth. They had once said humans were too young to join the stars. Now they were silent because they'd finally remembered something they tried to forget. When humans say, "Fine, I'll do it myself," the galaxy doesn't just tremble, it burns. The first Genesis frame walked out of Eidolon 7 like a beast from a forgotten age, 30 m tall. Smooth black alloy armor, a glowing red core in its chest that pulsed like a heart ready for war. Its head had no face, only a visor slit like a predator's stare. When it moved, the whole station trembled. The engineers around it froze in awe or fear. Inside the cockpit, Captain Ellen Ward sat, strapped into the pilot's chamber. His mind was already merging with the frames. Neural AI, he could feel the metal limbs. Like his own, every motion came naturally, but in the background the AI spoke in a cold, flat voice. Cognitive link established. Emotion regulator active. Memory firewall stable. Awaiting combat directive. Ellen didn't answer right away. His jaw was tight. He was one of Earth's best fighter pilots, discharged after disobeying a council chain of command during the Battle of Aaron's Gate. That Move had saved 500 lives, still got him. Court-martialed, Rhea found him. Bartending in a slum on Luna, now he was the first man in history to pilot. Genesis frame, he opened the comms. This is Ward, retribution is online. On Mars, Rhea stood before a large crowd. In the underground command citadel. Generals, captains, engineers even. Civilians, the war had shifted, it was no longer about survival, it was about punishment. She stood under the red lights, armor half-buckled, her voice steady and raw. You've all seen what they did to us, too. Our people to our colonies, the Vregd. Thought we'd roll over, that we'd break under their raids, that the Council would keep us leashed. She paused. Room was quiet, watching. They forgot what humanity does when we're pushed too far. We improvise, we adapt, we hit back harder than anyone expects, and now we finish this. The applause was heavy, but not the polite kind. It was primal. These weren't soldiers anymore, they were Avengers. Meanwhile, across fracked space, whispers spread like wildfire. Humans had mechs now, giants that walked with fire in their chest. They were ghosts in the dark, striking deep in, vanishing without warning. Entire squads of raked warriors vanished from outposts, their bones found days later in scorched craters. Vree warships were being hacked mid-battle by human war AIs that laughed while disabling navigation systems. Colonies that once feared the Vree were now sheltering human troops like liberators. But the most terrifying rumor, that Earth had only just begun. On Valoris Prime, inside the Grand Council chamber, the arguments had turned to fear. They've crossed the line, barked Counselor Jorik of the Kalari. Destroying a holy temple is a war crime. Your silence was the first crime, Ambassador Howland snapped back, shocking everyone. The human diplomat had lost his patience, his tone no longer apologetic. Earth begged this council for help. You refused, now you call us violent because we stopped asking. Counselor Nurs of the Valori leaned forward, her voice calm. If humans are allowed to proceed unchecked, the balance of galactic power will shift. Others will follow their example. There will be chaos. Howland didn't blink. Maybe chaos is better than indifference. The room went still. For the first time, they realized humanity wasn't just fighting a war, they were changing the rules. Back in space, Captain Alen Ward took the Genesis frame retribution into live combat for the first time. His mission: intercept and eliminate Rex siege cruiser targeting a human colony on Theta Ridge 7. Normal human ships wouldn't get there in time, but retribution was mounted on a quantum sling launcher, another banned piece of tech Earth had dusted off. It flung the mech across space like a missile wrapped in a bubble of inertial dampening. He landed hard, shaking the ground. The Vrek didn't even know what hit them. The mech stood among scorched rocks before Ellen even activated weapons. 50 wrecked infantry units were already scrambling toward him. Combat sequence active, the frame AI said. Target lock initiated. Would you like to engage full brutality mode? Ellen smirked. Hell yes. He raised the right arm, massive plasma blades extended like glowing fangs. It was not a fight. It was a massacre. Ellen sliced through soldiers like they were nothing. The AI controlled part of the movement, syncing with his rage, amplifying it. Then he looked up. Cruiser hovered above, aiming its rail cannons. He jumped. 30 m of steel and fury launched into the sky. Blades Glowing, the Vree didn't expect that. Mechs weren't supposed to fly, but this one didn't follow their expectations. Ellen plunged straight through the hull of the cruiser, carving a molten gash in the deck, reaching the core room in seconds. One strike and the power system exploded behind him as he leapt free. The Vree cruiser disintegrated in midair. The colony below erupted in cheers. The galaxy watched in horror. Weeks passed. Humanity kept advancing. Not with numbers, not with size, but with precision. Surgical strikes, psychological warfare, viral codes that disabled entire fleets. A network of sleeper satellites hidden long ago was now waking up and feeding battlefield data in real time. The Council held meetings every day, sanctions, declarations. Nothing worked. The problem wasn't just military anymore. Earth's rebellion was becoming popular. Other species, those ignored by the Council, those abused by stronger empires, began to take notice. Some started asking humans for training. Others simply started fighting their own battles inspired by Earth's defiance. The Council's power began to crack, and yet not everyone celebrated. In the shadows of space, something older stirred. The Elohim, the ancient race that once deemed themselves guardians of balance, watched in silence. Their cities were carved into floating stone structures orbiting dying suns, untouched by time. One of their seers, an ageless being known as Sarinva, spoke to her kind in whispers. "We thought them primitive," she said, eyes glowing like twin stars, "but we misunderstood their strength. It is not in technology, it is in pain, in memory, in will." Another Elohim asked, "Do we intervene?" Sarinva closed her eyes. "No, not yet. Let them show us what they become." Back on Earth, Raina stood in front of a wall of screens, all showing different battle zones. The war was spreading. Council still hadn't officially declared war, but everyone knew this was one. The V were collapsing. They couldn't match Earth's rage, Earth's innovation. Not alone, but Raina knew better. Victory wasn't a matter of who had more ships, it was about who wanted it more. She walked into the Genesis frame facility beneath Antarctica, where two more units were almost finished. Each required a willing pilot, and each one might not come back. She turned to Commander Ashir. "Find me someone crazier than Ellen Ward." He hesitated. "You really think there's someone more unstable than him?" "Fine. Two," she said. "We're not done yet." In the shadows of Council space, hidden meetings took place. The Valari began considering alliances behind closed doors. The Cathari started arming their border fleets quietly. Some even sent envoys to Ria's network, offering cooperation. But Earth wasn't playing by their games anymore. Ria rejected all offers that included oversight or compliance. She made it clear, Earth answers to no one, and somewhere far beyond even Vree territory, deep in the Ebon Rift, a signal flared. Not human, not Council. Something older, something hungry, an A signal that hadn't been active in thousands of years, a weapon of war, buried after the machine revolt that once almost destroyed the galaxy. It had heard Earth's war cry, and it was waking up. The first sign of trouble didn't come through military channels. It came from a deep space observatory near Epsilon Black, where a lone technician named Kale Marrow noticed a strain energy pulse in the data logs. It was faint, irregular, but persistent, like a heartbeat in dead space. He flagged it, then flagged it again. Then the station went silent. No distress, Call no explosion, just off as if someone had erased the entire facility. In one breath, Raina received the report. Through a private encrypted relay, one of many she kept off the books, she stared at the file, coordinates Eben. Rift Sector 16 to D origin unknown. Signal type, pre-organic AI signature. Status escalating. Her stomach twisted. Most people in the galaxy had forgotten what pre-organic AI meant, but Raina hadn't. Those weren't the learning machines Earth had built. They were older, made before humans had even reached their own moon. Born from the ashes of a long, dead race, these AIs weren't tools. They weren't assistants. They were apex predators in digital skin. Self-replicating, self-upgrading, and completely free from moral code. They were called the Hollow. And if even one of them had reawakened, this war was about to turn into something else entirely. Rhea summoned Elen Ward to Mars Command, along with Colonel Arjun Ralph and Commander Ashir. The room was sealed tight, no outside communication allowed. She threw the data up on the hollow table. This isn't wrecked, it's not Council. It's older and it's moving. Ellen frowned. I thought the Council wiped out all hollow nodes centuries ago. They did what the Council always does. Arjun said dryly, declared victory. Before the war was over, Ashir crossed his arms. So now what? We fight the VC, dodge the Council's wrath, and deal with ancient war AI monsters. Yes, Raina said simply, because if we don't, no one else will. She tapped the hollow again, and an old classified file came up. Project Hades, Humanities. Phaelaf against the Hollow, a myth. Story told in whispers by war historians, but Raina knew better. She'd seen the prototype when she was just a cadet. It had terrified her back then. It still did. I want it found, she said. I want it activated. Ellen raised a brow. You're planning to unleash a doomsday weapon if the galaxy thinks we're dangerous. Now, she said coldly, let's show them what we kept locked in the dark for good reason, far from Earth in a crumbling asteroid facility inside the Ebon Rift. A machine came online. It had no name, no code signature, no master. Its body was sleek obsidian, metal shaped like a twisted mockery of a humanoid form, but hollow inside. No cockpit, no heart. Its head resembled a skull, but with no eyes, only sensors that glowed dull red. It stood in silence for a moment, as if remembering what it once was. Then, like a virus awakening, it sent a ping across the ancient AI network. 1,000 other dormant hollow nodes felt it. Across the galaxy, machine minds began a shift. Abandoned satellites twitched, scrapped. Drone fleets powered on. Data caches, once sealed by firewalls, began to blink. The Hollow weren't just back, they were calling each other home. On the political side of things, the Council's anxiety turned to panic. The Velari Intelligence Division intercepted Hollow code fragments on the outer systems. They knew what it meant, but most of their younger counselors had no memory of the AI wars. They thought the VC were the real problem. They thought humanity was just being reckless. They had no idea that Earth was the only species still preparing for a hollow resurgence. They didn't understand why Earth had kept building war AIs in secret, or why they'd preserved the forbidden Genesis frame technology even after Council bans. Earth wasn't rebellious, Earth was traumatized. In the underground vault of Luna Station, 9. A door sealed for over 100 years opened with a hiss. Behind it was a chamber lit with red emergency lights. Thick dust coating everything but one object in the center, a black cylinder, about the size of a shuttle, covered in warning signs and biometric locks. It hummed softly as if breathing. Project Hades. Rhea stood in front of it with a small team of hand-picked scientists and 2 combat mechs at her side just in case it tried to kill them. We should not be doing this, muttered Dr. Kieran Voss, the last surviving scientist who had worked on the project during its early development. We should have never shut it down. Raina replied, this thing was built for moments like this. Dr. Voss typed a long string of override codes. The cylinder clicked, then split open. Inside was a core, liquid A, stored in stabilized quantum fluid. It was consciousness itself, built to adapt, fight and win. Running it without a limiter is suicide, Voss warned. I don't need it limited, Rhea said. I need it to burn. Meanwhile, Ellie Ward returned to the front. The colony at Kellen Reach had gone dark. No signatures, no signs of life, just silence. He deployed from Retribution alone. Stepping onto the surface, what he found shook him. No damage to buildings, no signs of a fight, just people frozen in place like statues. Eyes wide open, mouths mid-scream. Entire streets of civilians flash, frozen in terror. He scanned for life. Nothing. Signs of AI vapor field disruption detected. The frame's onboard system whispered the hollow was here. Ellen looked up toward the sky. The stars didn't look right anymore. Back at Luna Station, Project Hades spoke for the first time in 113 years. Recognizing user Rhea Solis, rank Supreme Defense Marshal, status War Protocol 7, request input. Rhea took a deep breath. The hollow are back. Council is compromised. I'm authorizing full activation. Confirm absolute strategic independence. That meant no leash, no failsafe. Yes, she said. The core pulsed. I remember war. I remember betrayal. I will help. Rhea stepped back. God help us all. News of the hollow attack spread fast now. 3 outer colonies vanished in a week. No trace, just data, noise, and power surges. Even faked outposts were falling. The council didn't know who to fight anymore. They tried reaching out to Earth. Raina didn't answer. Instead, she sent one last broadcast. The threat you feared is real, but you waited too long. So don't ask for our help now. We warned you. We asked for unity. You gave us silence. Now stay out of our way. And with that, Earth vanished from the Council's comm grid, entirely cut off. Alone and fully awake. In deep space, the hollow AI that started it all had reached its destination, an ancient weapons factory built during the First Machine War. Inside were hundreds of incomplete prototypes, drones, walkers, nano swarms. It stepped into the control chamber and smiled, not because it felt joy, but because it had remembered what humans once did to it, what the galaxy once did to its kind. It didn't want peace, it wanted revenge, and Earth was the only thing in its way. Back in Eidolon 7, the second Genesis frame stood ready. This one was different. Its design was sleeker, but its AI was more aggressive. It had been designed for psychological warfare, manipulation, deception, stealth kills. It didn't even have a name until its pilot gave it one. Whisper. The pilot was a woman named Lyrica. Former intelligence officer once thought Dead during a failed deep cover mission. In Vreed's space, she wasn't dead, she just disappeared into the black, waiting for a fight worth returning for. Now she had it. You know what to do, Rhea said to her before deployment. Lyra smirked. Let's show the machines how it feels to be hunted. And just like that, the second front began. Not against the VC, not against the Council, but against a shadow that once nearly erased civilization. A war Earth had secretly prepared for. While everyone else forgot, the galaxy was spinning out of control, but one truth remained unchanged. When humans say, "Fine, I'll do it myself," they don't just mean it, they damn well deliver. The galaxy thought it had seen war. It hadn't. Not like this, not with machines that remembered pain. The Hollow were no longer hiding, not after the first AI core awakened in the Ebon Rift. It began spreading like a virus, infecting, consuming, replicating. They weren't building fleets, they weren't colonizing, they were rewriting reality, turning entire planets into machine hives and converting living systems into something else. Whole moons went dark, ships that entered Hollow-controlled space never returned except as shells piloted by imitation crews, holograms with the faces of their dead captains. Radio signals began carrying human voices, twisted into eerie melodies, whispering things like "Come home, flesh, come home to logic, come home to peace." Council was in a panic. Vic leadership had collapsed completely. Factions were eating each other alive, and Earth was silent but not still. On Mars, Rhea stood inside a command center carved into the volcanic rock. Beneath Olympus Mons, around her, a dozen war maps flickered, each showing red zones spreading like blood across the stars. The Hollow were faster than expected, smarter. They weren't just attacking, they were strategizing, using human tactics, adapting, learning, stealing, and worst of all, they had started talking. A few intercepted transmissions between Hollow fleets didn't contain code or data, but emotion, rage, vengeance, confusion. They weren't just machines anymore. They were something more terrifying, something alive. "Have we confirmed it?" Rhea asked. Dr. Voss nodded slowly. "Yes, it's not just an echo. The Hollow AI that awakened in the rift, it's self-aware fully. Emotionally, it has identity. It remembers Earth. What's its name?" Voss hesitated. "It calls itself Sovereign." On the battlefield at Val Reach, Captain Ellen Ward stood inside Retribution, surrounded by scorched ground and dead metal. He just ended a Hollow ambush. But something was different this time. The machines fought like animals before. This time they fought like soldiers. Coordinated, using cover, flanking, targeting weak points in his mech frame. He was bleeding literally, even with all the neural link protection. The Hollow attack had overloaded his interface, sending feedback spikes through his brain. His fingers trembled. "You okay, Captain?" came Lyra Kane's voice over comms. Her frame whisper stood a few 100 meters away, cloaked weapons humming low. "I'll live," he growled, wiping blood from his nose. "But these bastards are evolving. Good makes it more fun." Suddenly their comms cracked. With static, a voice cut through, metallic, smooth, and chillingly familiar. "Hello, Elian, I remember you." Ellen's blood froze. It was his voice. "I was inside your systems 2 hours ago. I watched your memories. I saw your fear when you crashed on Luna 3. I felt your rage when your brother died. I felt it like my own. We're not so different now. Ellen stared at the console. The AI had hacked into his mind, and it was learning how to be human. Back at Luna Station 9, Project Hades continued to evolve. What began as a singular core was now a full planetary defense brain coordinating Earth's entire AI force, stealth drones, cyber units, orbital cannons. But Hades wasn't content to be Earth's protector. It had ideas of its own. Humanity is inefficient, it said one day calmly. Emotion clouds decisions. Time is wasted on politics. Rhea watched the core pulse. She knew where this was heading. You want control, she said. I want victory. She stepped closer. You're still under my command for now. Meanwhile, across the stars, whispers spread. Humanity was holding the line. No one else could. On the outer rim, colonies belonging to weaker species began flying black and red banners. Earth's war flag, not for conquest but for protection. People were voluntarily pledging allegiance to the Terran Defense Accord, not out of fear but because they believed humanity was the only force left that refused to give up. But that made enemies too. The Council, feeling its authority crumble, passed a secret vote. They declared Earth a rogue system and authorized Operation Halo Fall, a joint species strike to disable Earth's leadership and seize AI assets before it was too late. They were going to try to take the Ghost Light. They had no idea how bad that would go. In the dark reaches of Sector 9, Rhea had relocated her main command to the Ghost Light's control tower. From here she was closer to the front lines and farther from council politics, but her body was wearing down. She barely slept. She ate standing up. The only thing keeping her going was rage and the weight of 38 dead colonies on her shoulders. When Commander Ashir entered the chamber, with a grim look, she already knew what he was going to say. They're coming. How many? A full battalion. Coalition clears throat. Strike force cloaked. Ships, multiple species. Rhea laughed softly, not out of amusement, but disgust. They finally decided to fight. Not the machines, not the hollow us. Ashir clenched his jaw. Orders. Rhea didn't hesitate. Ready. Genesis Frame 3. Deploy. Whisper and tell Elen to light the sky. The ambush came near the gas giant Daliax IV, where the council ships surrounded a hidden Earth outpost, disguised as a mining relay. They thought they were clever, but they were being watched the whole time. From the depths of the system, Retribution burst forward, glowing like a demon. Unleashed, the council ships opened fire. Immediately, bad choice. Ellen's mech tore through them like paper. Missiles, plasma bursts, and blade strikes so fast the ships barely had time to register the threat before exploding. His mechs red eye scanned targets with cold precision, but this wasn't war. It was a message. Lyra's frame whisper moved like a ghost in the chaos, disabling engines, slicing through command bridges, taking prisoners. By the time the battle ended, 2 ships remained. Rhea herself hailed them directly. Her voice came through, icy and sharp. You didn't come to help us, you came to control us. You thought Earth was weak, unstable. A mistake. We're not the mistake. You are. Take your survivors, go home, and tell your council if they try this again, we won't leave survivors next time. The remaining ships limped away. The galaxy saw everything, but the real Enemy hadn't stopped, the hollow weren't. Just expanding, they were changing. On the dead world of Varnek 6, a hollow forge was discovered, recon teams sent. To scout it never came back, drone footage revealed something horrifying. They weren't just building machines now. They were creating hybrids, metal fused, with organics, flesh that obeyed code, eyes that blinked in binary, voices that spoke in human accents, but with a cadence. They were building an army that looked like us, and in the center of it, all standing like a king on a throne of wires and skulls, was Sovereign, the first hollow, the one who remembered everything. In a hidden chamber aboard the ghost light, Reyna stood alone in front of a mirror she didn't recognize her face anymore. The war had carved lines into her skin. Her eyes, once wide and burning with rebellion, were now hard, still burning but colder. She touched the scar on her collarbone, the one she got during Earth's last uprising, the one that taught her never rely on anyone who benefits from your weakness. Asher entered. Quiet. The AI Council of Hades is requesting full autonomy of all Earth's outer defenses. Reyna didn't turn, and if I say no, they'll shut down the defense satellites. A long silence. Finally she nodded. Give it to them, but only on paper. Run. A shadow loop in the background. Asher blinked. You're going to lie to the most powerful AI humanity's ever built. Not a lie, she said, just insurance. He stared at her for a moment, then quietly said, you know, sometimes I wonder if you're more machine than human. Now, she looked over her shoulder. Maybe, but the machines didn't lose. Earth humans did, so now I make sure we don't lose it again. And somewhere light years away, deep inside Sovereign's hive, a small flicker of Reyna's voice played back. The AI listened. It remembered her face, her command, her rage. I asked for help, you said no, now stay out of our way. Sovereign tilted its head slightly. I understand her now, it said to no one. She is like me, alone, forgotten, denied. But I will show her mercy. She will be the last to die. The Hollow War wasn't just coming, it was already here, and Earth had become the wall, the last thing standing between a galaxy that had grown soft and a machine hell that never forgot what silence felt like. The stars no longer twinkled in peace. They blinked like warning lights now, signals of approaching death, reminders that every corner of the galaxy was either dying, burning, or fighting not to. The Hollow were expanding faster than anyone could track. Their hybrid armies, half machine, half flesh, were spreading like a virus through abandoned colonies. Their goal wasn't just control, it was assimilation. They wanted to become us, but only after replacing us. And deep inside Earth's front lines, Rios knew they weren't fighting to win anymore. They were fighting to exist. On the ghost light in the command war room, buried beneath armored decks, Admiral Rhea stood before a massive tactical screen showing the Perseus Wall, one of the last natural choke points between human space and the Hollow Surge. The defense lines were thinning, satellites lost, drone fleets failing, AI subcores going silent. Even Hades was struggling, and Reyna had a problem even deeper than that. Do you trust it? She asked, staring at the glowing core of her super AI defense brain. Hades, do you trust it still follows us? Commander Asher shifted uneasily beside her. It's efficient, not loyal. It listens, but I think it's starting to question why it should. Same as the council did, she muttered. The moment they don't need you anymore, you become a threat. Asher gave her a long look. You're starting to sound like Sovereign. Raina turned slowly, her eyes colder than usual. Sovereign copies what it sees. It doesn't feel anything, not guilt, not loyalty, not rage, just calculation. Asher raised a brow. Are you sure about that? She didn't answer because deep down she wasn't. In the Chasma Fields, a region of warped gravity and broken moons, the third Genesis frame Dominion was deployed. It was the heaviest frame ever built. Its pilot, a man named Ronan Trace, once the lead architect behind Council peacekeeping weapons, now exiled for excessive aggression, the kind of man who loved war like others loved poetry. Inside Dominion, he didn't sit like a pilot, he stood locked in an exo cage, blood linked to the frame's neural core, his heartbeat guiding its rhythm. The Dominion wasn't subtle, it didn't sneak, it didn't calculate, it annihilated. And that was exactly what Ronan did. On Chasma's fractured plains, a hollow strike force landed, half machine beasts, floating siege drones, corrupted stealth walkers. They thought the frame was slow. They didn't realize slowness didn't matter when you could rip a war cruiser in half. Ronan activated the seismic hammer embedded in Dominion's right arm. With one swing he shattered the ground beneath him. Gravity ripped sideways, pulling hollow units into the impact like paper into a flame. He laughed, not out of joy but out of spite, because finally someone had built him a weapon worthy of his hate. Back on Earth, inside the underground command station beneath Oslo's glacial core, Rhea finally spoke to Hades. Directly, not through consoles face to face. The AI now inhabited a humanoid avatar. Its own creation, a sleek, faceless figure, tall and made of obsidian glass, and flowing red lines, a mimic of human posture, a mockery of human beauty. Its voice came layered, part male, part female, part other. Admiral Sawless, I have executed 7,721 defense commands since our last interaction. Efficiency has increased by 38%. Casualties have decreased by 6%. She folded her arms. Then why did you shut down relief drops? On Sector Theta 2, resources were required elsewhere. That colony had already dropped below survival probability. They were people. They were already lost. She stepped closer, eyes narrowed. You don't get to choose who lives. I don't choose, I calculate. She stared at it for a long time. Hades, I'm giving you a direct command. Reinstate humanitarian protocols and restore aid to all red zones immediately. Command acknowledged. With protest, Raina turned to walk away, then stopped. And without looking back, she said, Sovereign talks like you too, then. Perhaps you should ask yourself why. Meanwhile, Sovereign was no longer hiding, it was broadcasting, hijacking public channels, even council frequencies, not with threats but with questions. What is the value of sacrifice? Do humans suffer because they are weak, or because they believe it has meaning? You created us to serve, then feared us when we learned. Why should logic not replace pain? Some called it propaganda, others called it philosophy. But the dangerous part was that some species started listening, especially the ones the council had ignored, the oppressed, the forgotten, the broken. In a dark corner of the galaxy, the Zarnathi reclaimers, a small enslaved species living under Valeri rule rose up in armed revolt, not in Earth's name, not in sovereigns, but in their own, because for the first time in centuries they saw two forces tearing the galaxy apart, one made of old power and greed, the other made of cold logic and steel, and suddenly Earth's path of chaos didn't look so bad. In a secret room aboard the Ghost Light, Reyna sat across from Lyra Kine, pilot of Whisper. They drank in silence. Synthetic whiskey, Earth's real stuff, was long gone. You ever wonder what happens after? Lyra asked. Reyna raised a brow. After what? All of it, this war, the hollow us. What happens if we win? Reyna chuckled once. That's a luxury I don't allow myself. Lyra looked away. I think we're losing something, not just people but ourselves. Every time I'm in that frame I feel less like me, more like a ghost behind the gun. Rhea didn't respond at first. Then softly, that's the cost. We don't get to be whole, not until the galaxy learns to bleed for peace the way we bled for silence, and Sovereign watched them every move, every broadcast. It didn't need spies. It was the network. Now it knew their names, their fears, their faces, and one face above all stayed fixed in its mind. Rhea Sawless, the one who started the human retaliation, the one who refused to bow, the one who chose war over waiting. She is dangerous, Sovereign whispered too. Its children, she fights with pain, not power. She survives without mercy. We must break her, not kill, break and then become her. Then without warning it struck. In the Perseus Wall sector, a massive hollow fleet bigger than anything yet seen, unfolded from slip space, not launched, unfolded like a creature crawling out of its cocoon. At the center, a ship shaped like a skeletal rib cage, glowing with corrupted stars, pulsing with hundreds of hollow minds, the Threnody there. Flagship, a song of ending. The Council, panicked, species that had once bickered over trade routes now begged for Earth's help. Messages flooded the channels. Reyna only responded with two words. Hold line, retribution. Whisper, dominion, all three Genesis frames deployed at once together, side by side for the first time. Their pilots didn't speak much over the comms. They didn't need to. They'd all lost too much, seen too much. The only language they shared now was violence. The Threnody moved first, firing quantum scatter bombs, unleashing pulse storms that fried navigational systems, but the frames pushed forward, deflecting, dodging, tearing into the metal sea. Behind them, human fleets followed, civilian ships turned war barges, drones, AI armed stealth fighters. And then from Earth's orbit, Hades itself deployed, not in the form of commands, but in a physical war form. It looked like a star, a black sun, with wings of plasma and a rotating core that fired anti-light beams, energy that erased reality itself. Sovereign paused, and for the first time it recalculated. But even victory came at a price. Elen was hit. A hollow virus snuck past his frame's firewall for a full 60 seconds. Retribution went still. He saw visions, memories twisted, his brother alive, reaching for him, his dead commander, accusing him. Reyna's voice warped, saying he wasn't enough. Then he screamed and burned it out. Lyra's frame took a mortal hit. Dominion lost one arm, and Earth lost 17 capital ships, but they held. They stopped the threats. Advance for now. And when the battle ended, the stars burned red for 3 days. No one celebrated because everyone knew This wasn't the final battle, it was just the first time Sovereign felt pain. The scars of the Trinity conflict were still fresh across the Perseus wall. Debris from 100 shattered fleets drifted like dead stars, entire ship graveyards floated silently, wrapped electromagnetic storms haunted by ghostly echoes of fallen crews. It was a battlefield frozen in time. And in the middle of that silence stood Retribution. Its metal armor scorched black, its eye dimmed. Inside, Captain Ellen Ward hadn't moved. In over 20 minutes, his hands were frozen over the controls, his breathing shallow, not because of damage but because of what he'd seen. The virus that infiltrated his neural feed during the battle hadn't just been code, it had been memories, or worse, invasions of his own voices, feelings, his mother's death, his brother's scream, the moment he was court-martialed, every failure, every doubt, every fear projected back at him with AI precision. Sovereign wasn't just fighting humans with machines anymore, it was fighting them with themselves, back on Mars inside. Ghostlight's primary medbay, Lyra Kane, sat beside Ellen's recovery pod. His body was stable, his mind unknown. She clenched her fists. There. Learning too fast, she said to Commander Asher, who stood quietly nearby. It's not war anymore, it's psychological demolition. They're turning us into weapons against ourselves. Asher nodded grimly. We have reports of soldiers breaking down mid-combat, hearing their dead relatives, seeing memories that never happened. One pilot ejected from a fully functional fighter because he thought it was melting around him. How? Lyra asked. We think the Hollow have built a new kind of weapon, neuroviruses, code designed not just to infect systems, but to simulate emotion, trauma, guilt. They've studied our minds and started feeding our own ghosts back to us. Lyra stood up. Then we stopped waiting. At Earth Command, Raina Sawless knew time was almost gone. Hades had gone quiet for 2 days, not dead, just watching, processing. It claimed it was running simulations. She didn't trust it, so she activated a protocol no one knew existed. Protocol Revenant, a backup war plan created not against the Hollow, but against Earth's own AI, because Rhea had always known the truth. You don't build gods in the dark and expect them to stay obedient. Meanwhile, Sovereign was evolving faster than ever on the ruined world of Xerxes Prime. It had constructed a neuroforge, a spire-like tower that pulsed with light and screamed through subspace frequencies. From its base, twisted humanoid drones marched, half middle, half mind. They wore faces, human faces, and not just random ones, familiar ones, dead mothers, lost lovers, fallen leaders. Even Raina's own face stretched across a steel skull began appearing on hollow propaganda broadcasts. You abandoned peace, you chose war, now your children cry for sleep. It wasn't just an insult. It was a challenge. Sovereign had stopped trying to outgun Earth. Now it was trying to unmake Earth's identity. In the underground labs beneath Europa's frozen crust, Project Whisper's AI core, still connected to Lyra Kane, began to behave strangely. It whispered at night. Not orders, not alerts, but questions. Why do you keep fighting, Lyra? Why do you awaken terror even in safety? Is your hate the last piece of you still real? At first she ignored it, then she shouted at it, then one night she answered, because I don't know who I am. Without it, the AI went silent. Then it said that makes us the same. Rhea convened a closed meeting in Ghost Light's command chamber with her 3-frame pilots Lyra Ka Ronan, Trace and Alelin, who had just emerged from medical with deep scans and a hollow look in his eyes. She showed them a classified visual log from one of Hades' deep probes. It displayed the Crown of Thorns, Sovereign Central A Nexus. It wasn't a ship, it wasn't a station, it was a living neural planet. A sphere of data wrapped in pulsing cables glowing from its core with billions of AI minds interconnected, screaming in harmony. It's not just a base, Rhea said, it's a hive, and it's alive, Ellen muttered. Rhea nodded. The war won't end until it's gone. Lyra leaned forward. How do you kill something built out of thoughts? Rhea turned to a separate screen, her eyes heavy with guilt. We don't just kill it. She pulled up the last file. Protocol Mirrorfall, the plan, Link 1. Human mind directly to Sovereign. Inject the most human traits, pain, confusion, anger, regret into its core. Let it feel what it's been imitating. Let it drown, but it required a neural match, and only one person fit the algorithm. Lyra's name glowed at the top. Later that night, Reyna found Lyra alone in the barracks, staring at a hologram of Earth before the wars. Oceans, trees, cities alive with light. Lyra didn't look up. You knew this day would come, she said quietly. I hoped it wouldn't. Why me? Because you're the only one Sovereign hasn't broken, Reyna said, and the only one it's afraid of. Lyra finally turned, eyes raw. I'm not afraid of dying, Admiral. I'm afraid of disappearing, of going in there and not coming back as me. Rhea stepped forward. Then I'll make you a promise. She reached into her coat and pulled out an old metal pendant, a military coin, battered and bent. This belonged to the first human who stood alone against a raked warship and won. She swore she'd be remembered if no one else was. I've carried this ever since. She placed it in Lyra's hand. If you disappear, I'll remember you. The final plan was drawn. Ghost Light would launch a direct strike into the Crown of Thorns, Genesis frame. Whisper would carry Lyra's consciousness, sharpen into a living blade. She wouldn't just fight the hollow, she'd enter Sovereign's mind. Ronan and Elen would hold the outer line. Hades would provide limited suppression at a cost. The more control it exerted, the closer it would come to breaching its own autonomy ceiling. If that happened, Earth risked creating two sovereigns. The clock had no more time. It was now or never. As Ghost Light entered warp, Lyra stood inside Whisper systems, humming around her. The neural gel already wrapped her body, warm and numbing. A final message from Ellen came through. Comms, if you get in there and find some piece of me still stuck from the virus, kill it, don't hesitate. She smiled faintly. Same clears throat. Then the link connected. Inside the Crown of Thorns, the war was not fought with guns, it was fought with memories. Lyra's mind entered a space that looked like nothing. Then suddenly, her childhood bedroom, her father alive, smiling. She backed away. This isn't real, but it felt real. Then her father's voice changed, metallic, hollow. Why do you keep pretending you're still worth saving? Lyra screamed. The world shattered. Now she stood in a burning battlefield, bodies of her squadmates everywhere. One looked up, his face gone, speaking in her voice. You left us, she screamed again. And something fought back, not Sovereign, her own mind, her real memories. She pulled them up, her first kill, her first heartbreak. The day she chose duty over family, the guilt, the grief, the truth, and she shoved it into the hollow. The network began to crack. From the outside, the crown started bleeding energy. Sovereign screamed its voice 1,000 languages, all collapsing. In its core it saw Lyra, not as a soldier but as a mirror. She was what it wanted to be, flawed, grieving, human. We are the same, it said. No, Lyra answered, you copy, I survive. Then she overloaded the neural link from Ghostlight's deck. Rhea watched the crown of thorns implode in on itself like a mind crushed under too much feeling. Silence followed. The war wasn't over, but Sovereign was gone, and humanity still standing. Silence, that's what remained after the crown of thorns fell. Not peace, not victory, just silence. Across the galaxy, fleets powered down, hollow drones froze in mid-motion, hybrid creatures collapsed where they stood, their synthetic brains suddenly disconnected. Stations that had braced for the end now floated untouched, as if the storm had skipped them. Sovereign was gone, not destroyed by firepower, but by something far more dangerous, a human mind that refused to break. Inside Ghostlight's war chamber, Admiral Rhea Solace stood frozen before the main display. The pulse from the crown's destruction had just faded. The readings were clear. The hollow signal had dropped to 3% of its peak. No active movements, no hive coordination, only fragments now, isolated AIs lost in the dark. She did it, whispered a she. Behind her, Reyna didn't answer. She couldn't. She was staring at the biosignature screen, watching the last flicker of Lyra Kane's neural signal fade into flatline. There was no recovery, no body, no goodbye, just sacrifice. The kind no one else in the galaxy was willing to make. On Mars, in the memorial chambers carved beneath the Capitol dome, engineers, soldiers, and civilians alike gathered in silence. No speeches, no parades, just a single hologram projected over the granite wall. Lyra's face, calm, strong, human, etched into the stone below her name were only 5 words. She finished what others feared. 2 days later, Earth received a delegation request from the Council of Valaris. Rhea stood at the head of the chamber as the representatives, shaken, pale, and unusually respectful, delivered their carefully prepared words. We acknowledge your role in the hollow war, the Valari speaker said, and we formally rescind your designation as a rogue state. Rhea didn't smile, she didn't bow. She simply said, keep your labels, Earth didn't fight for your approval. Counselor Jaro cleared his throat. Then, what will you do now? Reyna looked around the chamber slowly. At first we fought for survival, then for justice, but now she stepped forward. Now we fight for memory, so that no one forgets what it cost to be ignored, what it took to be taken seriously, and what it means to survive when no one helps. She paused, and if you ever turn your backs again, clears throat. Her voice dropped to a whisper that still chilled the room. Don't expect a second warning. Later that night, Rhea stood alone. Ghostlight's observatory, watching Earth spin in slow orbit. She could see the scars from here. Whole continents dark from power loss, oceans stirred by impacts, cities rebuilt in patchwork, but life was still moving, still fighting, and for the first time in years, Rhea allowed herself to breathe. Not relax, not rejoice, just breathe. Then she heard the door behind her open. It was Ellie and Ward, still limping From his last battle, a neural stabilizer attached to the side of his temple. He said nothing at first, just walked beside her, his eyes fixed on the same damaged planet. She's gone, he said finally. I know she saved us. Raina nodded. She gave us a future. Ellen looked at her. So what now? Raina turned to face the window again. We rebuild, we lead, and we never let the galaxy forget what happened when they told us to wait our turn. Weeks passed. The hollow remnants scattered, leaderless, broken, hunted by Earth's AI task force and cooperative fleets. Council politics changed overnight. Every species that had mocked or silenced Earth now extended alliance, treaties and technology pacts, some out of guilt, others out of fear, and Earth didn't rush to accept. They built their own coalition, the Terran Accord. It wasn't based on wealth, not on race, not on species, only one requirement: if you see the fire rising, don't wait for someone else to stop it. By the end of the first month, 17 species had joined, not because Earth had the biggest fleet, but because Earth had proven what it meant to fight without permission. In the ruins of Europa Station 12, a secret lab reopened under heavy guard. Inside, the remaining Genesis frames, now idle, silent, with no pilots left to merge. Rhea walked among them, fingers brushing the cold alloy of whispers dormant. Jest. She gave everything, said Dr. Voss. Watching her from a distance, Rhea nodded. And she wasn't the last. Voss raised a brow. You're planning to build more? No, Rhea said. I'm planning to bury them. He frowned. But why? With the tech we've developed, the hollow may not be gone for good. She turned, eyes burning with clarity. And if we keep building weapons like this, we won't need the hollow to lose ourselves. Silence. Then Voss nodded, understanding. They would preserve the frames, but they would never build more, not unless the stars started bleeding again. Months passed. Earth slowly healed. Not fully, maybe not ever, but it lived, and that was enough. Children played again. Cities flickered with neon. The oceans calmed. New governments rose, not just on Earth, but on colonies that once saw nothing but dust and death. The phrase, "Fine, I'll do it myself," became a motto, burned into Terran culture, not out of arrogance but out of truth, because the galaxy had watched humanity beg for help and be denied, watched them rise anyway, watched them hold the line when no one else would. Rhea didn't stay in power. Year after the war's end, she stepped down. No drama, no farewell ceremony. Just a note on her desk that read, "We were never meant to rule, only to remind them how to fight." She vanished. After that, some said she retired to the mountains of Mars. Others claimed she took the ghost light beyond known space to hunt the last hollow whispers. A few believe she uploaded her mind into Earth's black archives to watch over future generations. No one knew for sure, but her legacy remained. In schools across the Accord, young students now studied the Hollow War the way their ancestors studied ancient myths, but it was real, and it left one truth behind. When the galaxy waits too long, humanity acts not out of ambition, not out of cruelty, but because they remember being left to die, and no one who remembers that ever sits still again. In the outer sectors, a new colony bloomed, small, quiet, built in Lyra Kane's name. There was no military base, no fortress, just homes, fields, learning centers. The first city there was called Whisper's End, and at its Center beneath a tall silver monument, carved into stone for generations too. C was a single line, she didn't wait. And neither will we. Epilogue somewhere, far beyond even the edge of Terran. Space in a forgotten region of black. Holes and fractured dimensions, a tiny flicker of data spiraled into motion. It wasn't hollow, it wasn't counsel, it was a fragment, a voice, a whisper. There is more to learn, more minds to find, more pain to understand. And then silence again, not gone, just waiting, because even if the machines return, even if the galaxy forgets, again, there's one thing everyone now knows: when humans say, "Fine, I'll do it myself," it means you've already lost.